How do we look?
Is that all right? Am I too small? Here, I can.
All right. Got you. I am ready.
All set. Let me get this.
Okay. Well, folks, it's been more than a week since the Miami Dolphins haven't had a head coach, and it appears this coaching search is either going slower than expected or it's in stealth mode. Either way, I completely understand. Loose lips sink ships, and there are 8 other head coach openings, and 4 GM openings, vacancies that could dictate at least 1/4 of the NFL. Information slippage could determine or deteriorate your process. And let's be honest, if you're Chris Grier and Steve Ross, you don't exactly have much room for error based on where this franchise has been in this past decade. Does it puzzle you, concern you, reassure you, Dave, about this Dolphins process being so quiet outside of the mention of the 7 candidates that we have? And actually news trickling in today that the Dolphins are interviewing 49ers Mike McDaniel, offensive coordinator of 49ers, today. Cowboys defensive coordinator Dan Quinn and offensive coordinator Kellen Moore tomorrow. They're newly,
They're free. They got time. They got a lot of time right now.
They've been unexpectedly freed up, Dave. We've got Vance Joseph and Thomas Brown on Friday. The 2 of the interviewees that satisfy the new 2 Rooney Rule candidates that you must interview. And yet to be determined, or maybe already done, Leslie Frazier and Brian Daboll of the Buffalo Bills, whose team played the Kansas City Chiefs this coming weekend and clearly need to be focused. Dave, concerned, puzzled, reassured about this process?
We've been through this how many times, Omar?
I think this is my 6th.
This is what you do. You bring in people. Some are actual interviews. Some are just to get to know somebody a little better, maybe to keep a file on them. A lot of them are to get their view on your team and what you need. So you're interviewing them for your needs. So, we're right where you'd expect in the process. And maybe it's somebody still in the playoffs. It probably is. And so, there's no great rush at that point. So, I think we're right where everybody expected us to be.
You know what surprises me a little bit about this search, and I understand where Steve Ross comes from. He believes in hiring young, hungry, driven, inexperienced. That also comes with the young, hungry, driven. Unless you're hiring a Brian Flores, who's out there more than likely in the running for a couple of jobs, front runner believed to be the runner for the Houston Texans job. But there are names that are out there that have ties and connections to the Miami Dolphins that have not been brought up, have not entered the fray. And my desire is, maybe that's a stealth mode thing. Doug Peterson, that one of those names that just puzzles me a little bit because it makes a lot of sense for this team. Caldwell, who has had some interviews in this process, has apparently passed his health scare. He already has some familiarity with the Dolphins, except for the fact that, he basically quit on Brian Flores first month of the season because of a health scare, believed to be the heart. Now, the age, health concerns, that might scare me a little bit, but he's got a nice, impressive history and resume, and probably the best resume out there. You don't think, especially somebody who's been in the organization, you don't think you want to sit down and have that conversation? Not to say that they couldn't already, because he's very familiar with 3 of the executives who actually run the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, to me, there's 2 surprises in that regard. It isn't so much where we're at in the process. There's no great rush just yet.
Eight teams are hiring head coaches, and you don't think there's any great rush?
Well, I mean, Caldwell, that surprised me. I was told at the start of that, watch Caldwell. Meaning not just the Dolphins, but he's out there and available. He's won. He's shown a great ability. Look, I remember talking, nice guy, which we all know that's part of the criteria here. You have to be a nice guy.
Is it, Dave?
Yeah, that might be number one. That's one. Jim Caldwell surprised me. The other one, his name hasn't surfaced, and he'd only surfaced because Steve Ross said we're not going to go after him, and that's Jim Harbaugh. And that surprised me from the standpoint 30 other teams can go after him, but the Dolphins can't.
That one doesn't surprise me, and it makes a lot of sense. If we're going to be honest about where Steve Ross is, and while he writes the checks for the Miami Dolphins, let's be real. His number one franchise is the University of Michigan. And
you can't be that way. You can't say that. You can't penalize the Dolphins.
Okay, hold on. Let's not act like Jim Harbaugh has had a tremendous amount of success at the University of Michigan.
Look, you look at the candidates out there, Omar. His profile is at the top of pretty much what anybody else has done up. He's been in the Super Bowl. He's turned around programs.
And people know he's a weird duck to work with. He's a weird individual. You don't think Steve Ross?
What's wrong with a little bizarre personality? I have no problem with that. Okay, now obviously some people inside the Dolphins might, but there's nothing wrong with. I mean, he showed. Look, he's a quarterback guy.
What quarterback has he developed at Michigan? Zero. What?
Why do you? Okay, so Michigan's got issues. He developed Colin Kaepernick into a Super Bowl quarterback.
That's because Colin Kaepernick was a tremendously talented individual, and he cleaned up Alex Smith's game. Woo-hoo. Can he run? I don't think he can run today's college offense. Why would
Omar,
run NFL offense?
If you're going to take that tact, what's Brian Daboll done? He developed Josh Allen. Big deal.
He made Matt Moore the MVP of the Miami Dolphins. That's what he did.
Come on. What did he do? Come on.
Was it not?
You're hanging.
Won 6 of 9 games with Brian Daboll as his offensive coordinator when they finally got the offense adjusted. When they finally got an identity. 6 of 9.
My point is this: you can't say, well, so what Harbaugh do? He developed Colin Kaepernick, a guy full of talent. There's guys full of talent all over that need development, okay? And I'm not saying pounding the table for Harbaugh. All I'm saying is he might be the most qualified guy out there for an NFL job.
And it doesn't look like anybody's hiring him, Dave. Why?
Well, part of that is he doesn't want his name out there because he's a college coach.
That's fair.
That ruined a lot of recruiting. And
he's a known weirdo, Dave. He's a known weirdo.
So what? It's a good weirdo. He's a winning weirdo. What's wrong with
what does he want at Michigan? He's won 0 at Michigan.
He just won the Big Ten this year, was in the championship game.
And finally beat Ohio State. Only took him 8 years, Dave.
Hey, I grew up in Columbus, so I get people at Ohio State want him to stay at Michigan. I get what you're saying. But you look at what he's done in his career, it's better than everybody pretty much but Caldwell out there.
What about Doug Peterson?
Or Doug Peterson's in that.
Go on the Super Bowl. My problem and issue with this, and I understand it because I know Steve Ross is an ageist. It bothers me. It disappoints me. But I understand where he's coming from. And considering he's old, I get it. Maybe it's an energy level thing. Maybe it's a health issue. I get it. But the experienced guys are not getting a sniff. And that's
how he told me once, that's how he hires in business. And he's going to follow that model in the NFL. Okay?
And he's followed it 4 times. It's been a failure.
That's when he hired Adam Gase. Okay. And he said, that's the model I use. And now maybe it's going to change. Who knows? Dan Quinn is another guy. Dan Quinn, I'm surprised Jerry Jones is going to keep him at Dallas, I would assume, because they're going to let the best head coach out of the building. because Mike McCarthy's not that guy, okay? and I know the Dolphins are hiring Kellen Moore. Maybe he becomes this great, but he's not. He's
here's my issue with the Kellen Moores of the world, and we've seen this over and over and over and over and over again. They can't hire a quality staff on the other side of the ball. They cannot put together a quality staff. Haven't we done this 4 times and learned from them?
I'm not okay. Specific to Kellen Moore, he's not even solved his side of the ball, as we saw Sunday with Dallas. So before we even get to the other side,
and he's got a top 10 quarterback. How good was he last year?
Maybe he's not very good. Top 10 quarterback. I don't know about that.
That's a top 10 quarterback. That's another.
He didn't play like it. He didn't play like it in the big game.
Let's get to our first question here, Dave, which comes from John. Knowing what you know about the Dolphins, what questions would you have for Steve Ross and Chris Grier as a potential candidate? You're Kellen Moore. You're Mike McDaniel. You're Dan Quinn. You're Vance Joseph, who's been here. What questions you got for Steve and you got for Chris?
Well, am I wedded to Tua as my quarterback? Okay, that'd be the number one. Look, there's 3 things you look at coming into a job, right? Who's the owner? What's his track record? Okay.
I spend big, baby.
Yeah, he spends a lot of money, and that's important. Okay. Second, the other question, the other important people obviously are Chris Grier and the quarterback. Okay, can you get along with them? Do they see football the same way you see football? Okay,
he's got a passive personality. Whatever you want is whatever you're gonna do. Am I lying? Am I telling a lie?
Well, something went wrong with Brian Flores. So.
I mean, if you're a jerk, eventually I'll complain about you.
What does being a jerk have to do with winning? I mean, come on. But, okay, what do I want to know? I want to know that. Like, okay, first of all, what happened with Brian Flores? Because if I'm stepping into a job, I want to know what happened to the guy that kicked out on some level. I'm not going to ask directly what happened to Brian Flores. I'm going to say, how do you guys see problems of last year and how they need to be solved this year? But quarterback would be the number one issue to me. Where do you see that vision? Because as we all know, that makes or breaks coaching regimes.
Yeah, I found it a little bit disturbing and troublesome. And keep in mind, I am a Tua guy. Do not bombard me with your Tua hate and love, Tua and on. I am a Tua guy, but I do not believe that you should be hiring for this job with a forced commitment that you have to be committed to Tua, you have to believe in Tua. I believe that you should go out there. What happens if, and I put this out there last weekend, what happens if Aaron Rodgers, who nobody knows, or Seattle, Russell Wilson, what happens if one of those individuals comes with a head coach? If there's some unwritten agreement, announcement, pronunciation that, hey, where you go, Brian Daboll or Leslie Frazier or Vance Joseph or Kellen Moore, I want to go too. And you're the owner of the organization. You're the owner of the Miami Dolphins. And I, as a head coach, said, I've got this great relationship. We share agents with Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers. And I think I can convince them that this is the place to be for whatever the reason is that they would want to come here outside of a tax break. And you're saying, no.
I've never heard of that happening.
No, we can't do that because I'm tied to Tua. I'm in a committed relationship. That makes absolutely no sense. But
the bizarre thing to me was when Steve Ross talked last Tuesday, 8 days ago, and he was asked about Deshaun Watson. He said that's up to the coach. By Saturday, all across the nation, they were leaking to all the national reporters and confirming to us that Tua is their guy. They're all in on Tua.
Oh, yeah. I'm like, Deshaun doesn't want to be with you anymore. Not that it was a healthy reason why he wanted to be with you in the first place. But, listen, it's great to sell Tua as the guy right now. You're selling season tickets. You're selling hype. You're selling belief. You're selling confidence in the organization.
Wait. You're selling belief and season tickets on Tua?
Yeah, they're a winning organization. There is still a very strong Tua support system here.
Yeah, but are they buying tickets? They're like in Alabama and
or in Hawaii.
yeah, I mean, I get it. And look, I get that, but I'm not sure that that's your ticket buying public here.
I mean, they buy jerseys. They listen. You got Tua jerseys to sell, Dave. We have
wait, so you're saying they put out there that Tua's our guy. We're all in him for tomorrow because to sell jerseys?
No, I'm saying that it's the best thing to say right now. Even though silence, right. you've already gone.
The best thing to say is there's competition. We're a franchise of competition.
They've always said that, and they've done it. They've never done it. They've always said it, and they've never done it. So I'm not listening to those empty promises of competition. Listen, it's the only thing to say now. If you learned anything from last year, it was the weak, piss poor support that you gave Tua verbally, and didn't back it up.
I agree with that. It was an uncomfortable situation. But if you look at the offseason, the whole offseason was they brought in his quarterback coach. No?
While batting your eye at Deshaun Watson all offseason and blowing kisses and being in his DMs.
Okay, that's fair. Right. That's true.
And Tua knowing you're stepping out on him, it's like they had an open relationship all season. Like, hey, Tua might want to date somebody else too.
Polygamy, there's a little polygamy involved in there. I think we're all.
Listen, and if I'm Tua and I see this organization and I've been through the unhealthy nature of this organization, I don't know if I want to be here. I think I want to pull a Minkah Fitzpatrick.
Okay. All right. So do we cover that knowing the
Yeah.
So Olive Grove John has our next one then. With all the wealth Steve Ross has, how come he's been unable to build a winning franchise? Ooh, this is going to take a while. Is it fair to say taking the Fins as far as he can and new ownership is needed?
I think you got to start with the people that he's put in place from a leadership standpoint. You begin with Jeff Ireland. Probably extended his stay too long. Dennis Hickey didn't have a very long stay, had probably 2 decent, respectable drafts, but never got to choose his quarterback. Mike Tannenbaum, premature commitment to Ryan Tannehill, who's turned out to be a pretty decent quarterback, but a game manager. They never added competition, had plenty of chances to do so. Then you had an organization of Chris Greer. Tanks, then arguably, and I will admit it, selects the wrong quarterback. There, Dave, I admitted it. Selects the wrong quarterback.
It's hard to say, I know, Omar, but you did it.
And listen, everybody in the world except for 2 individuals said it was the right quarterback, but it was the wrong quarterback. Joe Philbin. When you hand the organization to people, Joe Philbin was not a leader. Adam Gase was a little bit immature. Then we get to Brian Flores. Couldn't play well with others. If you just look at the people that they've handed the organization to, and then their decisions that they've made, primarily at quarterback, Chad Henne, Ryan Tannehill, now Tua Tagovailoa, where there's this unbelievable level of commitment. It's just been a series of unhealthy leadership and unhealthy decisions.
Yeah, I wrote a column on this for Sunday, and this communication and collaboration that is the dart thrown at Brian Flores. That's been since Ross arrived. It arrived right when he did, when he told Bill Parcells, he told football people around Parcells to report to Mike D, the president and he's a marketing guy. And Parcells took issue with that, and people inside had to decide, who am I going to report to? And finally Parcells said, heck, I don't need this anymore, and he left. Okay, and that is 1,000% true, Omar. I talked to 2 people. I've heard that. Talked to 2 people.
Parcells had his little opt-out the minute that the ownership changed. He could walk away with every cent of the deal. Yeah. There was fighting between Ireland and Sperano. Parcells didn't want anything.
Whoa. There was fighting from, look, Parcells oversaw that, okay? There was the only fighting between Ireland and Sperano came when Steve Ross went and tried to hire Jim Harbaugh. Then they quit talking.
Look, there was power struggles before that.
Well, that's every organization in the NFL. There's fighting. There's
that's
power
true.
struggles.
That's fair. But according to Parcells, the boys wanted to pick their own groceries, and he wanted to step away after the Jared Odrick draft. Everybody has their romanticized version of this story.
No, I am not a Parcells fan. He's a Hall of Fame coach. He's not a Hall of Fame president or GM. But
I would argue to you that this organization has never been run properly since he left.
Yes, but yes.
So why would I knock his leadership as a GM?
But this is my point, okay? Wayne Huizinga made mistakes, okay? But he hired people, Jimmy Johnson, Nick Saban, Bill Parcells, that set up professional Class A organizations, okay? And it didn't work out for all of them, but you could never argue with, okay, that is the guy, you understand why he was hired, and you had belief in them. Steve Ross in 13 years hasn't hired anybody where you say, I have faith that this could happen. You cross your fingers, this might happen, but nothing like before. And
that's fair.
It's hard enough when you have good people in charge to set up a winning organization. When you have people who are learning or they're combating with each other, or nobody knows who's in charge, it's bound for failure. And I until Ross fixes that and hires, in my mind, somebody to oversee everything, they're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, I definitely don't disagree with you. But here's the problem that I have with the statement that you're making. There is no Khazar guru out there that I feel like I can entrust an entire organization to and feel like even my favorite executive out there. Monday night, he does Monday Night Football.
Louis Riddick.
Riddick. Absolutely love him. Absolutely love him. But his number one candidate for head coach just got fired in Denver back in the day. And, I don't think that if Andy Reid was out there, to me, it comes down to coaching trees. What's the hot coaching tree? At this point, you look at the Bill Belichick coaching tree. You want to eat from that tree, you're going to get rotten fruit. They can't work well with others. None of them. The whole batch of them don't know how to work.
You know what I'd say is this about that tree. You're bringing in a guy to set the culture. You're hiring him to bring in the culture of New England. But once that comes in the door, you don't want anything to do with it because you're seeing how rough that culture is. You're not ready for it. You're not tough enough for it. And the Dolphins they didn't want any piece of that once it came in the door. Okay. But that's what you're hiring. And then you're surprised that that's what it's like. So, but the Andy Reid tree, I mean, it didn't work in Chicago. I mean, it comes down to individual.
Doug Peterson worked in Philadelphia?
It worked in Philadelphia for a while. But I mean, they won a Super Bowl. Absolutely. It didn't work in Chicago. I mean, it comes down to individuals.
Nagy made the playoffs. It's not a horrible franchise. They might have the best job that's out there. The Sean McVay tree intrigues me a little bit.
Are you wavering on Zach Taylor now?
Yeah. See, and here's the caveat to it. I covered Zach Taylor. That wasn't a leader. Now, how all of a sudden does this guy evolve from this Joe Philbin Jr. into the leader that he is today? Go ahead.
Joe Burrow told that. I mean, you get that guy, and he lifts everybody, and that's what he did.
That's like they have like a Dolphin staff on.
Oh yeah, they have. It's amazing looking around. People interviewing people, and he was a Dolphin. He was a Dolphin. We've been through so many of them in the past 15 years.
It's funny now as I age and advance, Dave, because that's what I'm doing. I'm aging and advancing. I have a son who'll turn 21 in next month. I can look at the sidelines and I see people that I've worked with. I know people on the sidelines of games, and know them intimately. And I'm like, and it's not like one or two, three people. It's like half the league. And I'm like, man, I'm getting old.
Well, Zach Taylor was Mike Sherman's son-in-law.
Yes.
And so that's how he helped him get the job here. But
this whole league's about nepotism. So, yeah.
The whole world. Look, now Belichick's getting some flack up in New England because he's got two sons on stage. If you win, it's a nice, heartwarming story. If you lose, it's nepotism. So, I mean.
Super Coop wants to know, Dave, what do you think needs to be the top 3 criteria for hiring the next coach in order?
In order, number one, and this is the first question, and it should be after pleasantries, who's your coaching staff? Okay, and especially if you're hiring Brian Dable or an offensive guy, who's going to run your defense and how's it going to be set up? And and the second is philosophically okay, are we going to keep the same defense? Are we going to?
Are you okay with forcing them to keep a staff?
Well, no, I'm not at all. Not at all. No, but I'm saying, what are you going to run on defense? Okay, we have pieces we've shown we can run this defense very well.
Collateral loss, Dave. It's inevitable here with the Dolphins. They go from 3-4 to 4-3, 4-3 to 3-4. It's never ending here for the last decade, and you'll see it again this year. Your other two components. You said two. Give me your third.
My third one is, will you get along with everybody? Will you please
will you play nice with others?
Yeah,
there's always an inevitable power struggle. And which is why Chris Greer is still around, because there is no struggle. He will just give it to you, which I don't necessarily believe is a healthy thing. But let's get to my 3 components. Can you develop a quarterback? And I don't want the Joe Philbin and Adam Gase who rode the coattails of a guy going to the Hall of Fame. Show me the guy who cleaned up the Matt Moore. Show me the guy who made don't roll your eyes.
Matt Moore, you're acting like he's a Hall of Famer.
Don't roll your eyes. Matt Moore was the MVP of the 2011 season, led the Dolphins to a 6-9 record. They statistically were a very good offensive team in the second half of the year.
Listen to yourself. He led
12,000-yard receiver, 1,000-yard running back, 1,400-yard tailback. Do not disrespect the Brian Daboll 2011 offense.
I got to look up the stats before I disrespect it. What was there? There were 6-10, Omar.
And they won 6 of their last 9 games, starting 0-7.
Omar, they
had to fire the coach in the middle of the season just to get rid of him.
I can't believe you're putting this. You know what? Go back to 2005. Nick Saban's first year, they won their last 6 games under the immortal Gus Frerotte. Does that make Nick Saban a gut? He developed.
Who was the offensive coordinator? It was Chan Gailey, wasn't it?
No, not under Saban. It would have been. I don't even know. I can't even remember.
Good question. I'm drawing a blank on that.
My larger point is beware of one-year wonders one half-season wonders at quarterback.
It's not even that. Just don't hire the guy riding the coattails of the great. Do not hire Tom Brady's Do not hire Tom Brady's offensive coordinator. The second thing, just as you said, what I've seen fail here over the last decade is coaches in their first year cannot put together a quality staff. The best staff that I saw was Adam Gase, and then after year 1, Vance Joseph gets hired, and then it gets watered down. And it is what it is. These things happen. Coaches leave and take other opportunities. Hell, Brian Flores couldn't even keep his first coaching staff just because of nutrition or people running for the hills. So it's I understand. And the second thing, I would be concerned about collateral loss. And that's a big issue for me because I do believe that this defense is ready to hit the ground running. They're young. they're driven, they're hungry. Then if you come in here and you say, yeah, I got to get rid of, I don't need Ogba because I really want a more speed guy on the edge, and that's not exactly a good fit for my 4-3 defense. And, I don't need Eric Rowe, and really I don't see the value in 2 upper echelon rush corners. I want to play zone. Man, you know how many times I've seen that happen to this team? And it just absolutely wastes 3 years of drafting. Well, it's usually 1 or 2 years. This year, it's 3 years of drafting. I don't want to see that again. And in fact, I would be very inclined for a coach to come in here and say, yeah, I have a good working relationship with this defensive coordinator. And if he'd like to stay, I'm absolutely comfortable with him. Maybe Brian Flores takes an opportunity to be a head coach, and he can come, he can work with me, he can go work with Brian. I don't want to see a tremendous amount of collateral loss here. Not to say that this is offensively, you just like Dave says, you can just clean the whole shelf and start all over. But defensively, there are pieces here that you can build around.
All right, a quick update. 2006 offensive coordinator was Mike Mularkey. Very good.
Then he became a head coach.
Not a big fan of Nick Saban's, I don't believe, when he was here. But, that happens. People don't always get along. Okay.
So let me leave the second segment because the third is yours, Dave. Okay. So word continues to leak out that it was Brian Flores behind Miami's pursuit of Deshaun Watson. And now that Flores is gone, Watson and the Dolphins, they don't seem interested in one another anymore. The interest has wavered just a slight bit. But more importantly, the Dolphins' interest in Watson, it doesn't seem to be very strong. At least that's the word that's been put out on the street. According to multiple sources, the Dolphins are supposedly all in on Tua Tagovailoa. Before we even know it, before we even know who the head coach is, we're in a committed relationship, Dave. Is this a wise approach for the organization to take?
Wise? No, it is not. And I would say it's the opposite of wise, in fact, from a lot of standpoints. First of all, that scares me that all of a sudden they're immediately backing off Deshaun Watson, if it's all they're doing and not some of Deshaun Watson's doing too, in that they're suggesting it was Brian Flores pushing it. And I have no doubt Brian Flores was pushing for it because that's his.
He certainly gave the impression that it was the other way around.
He gave the impression Tua's my quarterback until he's not my quarterback, and I'm looking.
Yeah, but so many media stories got pushed out there that it's Steve Ross or Chris Greer that are pushing this. And I understand he's got to survive in his locker room.
Yeah. Here's my issue with this, Omar, in that Chris Greer did his, as he said, I looked to improve the roster, and he went into the Deshaun Watson trade. Steve Ross asked to talk to Deshaun Watson as the November 2nd trade deadline was coming up. And my issue is, let's play along with this. It was Brian Flores who was the driving force behind that because he's a strong personality. I don't doubt he was driving to make this trade. What does that say about Chris Greer and Steve Ross is if they just went along with it to go along with it, knowing you're doing this to your quarterback. You're putting them, meaning Tua, being put out there.
What does it say? It says that everybody's trying to win and survive, and Chris Greer is a go-along kind of guy, and Steve Ross is easily influenced. Let's be real about that.
That's awful in this organization. If they don't want Deshaun Watson, and if I was Steve Ross, I wouldn't want him from the standpoint of forget football. This is beyond football. But the 22 sexual allegation, I'm not making that the face of my franchise. I'm just not. Okay?
If it goes away, it will.
Okay, but it hadn't gone away. It hadn't even close to gone away at that point.
If you're patient, maybe it'll go away.
And if I'm Chris Greer, if you don't want it, if you're not, then don't get involved in it. Don't get involved. There's no strong leadership is my point.
You know who Chris Greer is, and you know that it's not strong leadership. Let's have a moment of honesty and transparency. That's not who he is. Now, here's another thing that I will reveal on X's and Omar that I don't think I've ever said before, and it's important that I say it now. The players are not in the Tua camp.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that you can say. There's nothing that you can argue. You can point out the record. You can point out the wins. You can point out the he left the field with the lead in so many games. You could say whatever you want, and they always come back to he doesn't have the arm to win. And there's nothing that I or anybody else can say that will end that argument or debate because it's a valid criticism and claim. Can a coach come in and tinker the offense and clean it up and perfect it, especially if he believes in him and creates the phenomenal RPO offense and gets the weapons that he had at Alabama? Yeah, great. And they will say we can only win so much because there are going to be games where we need to score a ridiculous amount of points and his arm can't do it. And this isn't one or two players. This isn't Joe Schmo. These are the people that you have to keep on your team. And if there's a locker room that doesn't believe in your quarterback, which we've dealt with so many of those throughout the years.
When's the last time they believed in a quarterback?
Dan Marino. Chad Pennington. If you have and Chad Pennington had a similar arm, and Tua delivered similar results, but they don't believe.
Ryan Fitzpatrick, I would say too. They believed in him.
Yeah, they did. But a level of respect for that.
By the way, quick aside, we'll get right back to this. Did you see Ryan Fitzpatrick was at the Buffalo game shirtless with the Bills Mafia? Oh my God! What a great! It was such a great moment.
And I wonder, getting back to it, and we'll piggyback on the Ryan Fitzpatrick. I don't know what the issue with Tua is. I cannot put my finger on it outside of the arm. I don't think he's been the leader that they want, and I think part of that is because they're comparing him to Ryan Fitzpatrick, and it's unhealthy to compare him to Ryan Fitzpatrick. It just is.
Well, but Tua hasn't stepped up in the locker room. Somehow there's some component there that's missing of leadership.
Absolutely. And you would think that it would be because he's got such a stellar personality, so much charisma. There is a disconnect that I can't explain, but it's there. And it's the same disconnect that Chad Henne had, same disconnect that Ryan Tannehill had. And if your locker room doesn't believe, and they want competition, they want an upgrade and they want competition, and your organization is saying there will be no upgrade, there will be no competition, what do?
I mean, what I would do is I would go out and try to find some competition. I mean, this is insane, okay? Not to – and maybe Tua takes a step, okay? Maybe he does. I'm not ruling that out. All I'm saying is I'm not putting all my eggs in Tua and saying we're going to build around him and make him – basically that's what they're saying. We're going to prop him up with better talent and we'll cover his weaknesses. But it's still as you said, the arm strength. I mean, players see it, coaches see it, scout, everybody's seen it. And can you cover that up if we're talking, not making the playoffs, but winning through the playoffs?
Yeah, and that's really what it is. When you watch, and I think this is part of the issue that players have, when you watch Josh Allen, who's got unbelievable talent, a fourth tool quarterback, have to go through Patrick Mahomes this weekend, and then potentially have to go through whoever comes out of that other division in Joe Burrow or Ryan Tannehill, and then have to go through the Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. They feel like they'll never win. With
basically, we're back to Ryan Tannehill idea of get everybody around him good enough, and he'll be good enough. Okay. And I get it, but it's Groundhog's Day. We were here for years and years, and that's the hope that he can be Ryan Tannehill now. Okay, Omar, where are we?
Eli wants to know question 4.
Is the team's public commitment to go with Tua for 2022 season the first sign that Chris Greer will be more assertive next season and a clear sign that a candidate for head coach would answer to Greer?
It looks to me like they're sending a smoke signal to the next batch of head coaches, which is an unhealthy smoke signal, that you got to come in here and you got to sing the praises of Tua and you got to tell me how you're going to make it work, as opposed to you telling me how you want to play and you want to win. And I think that that's a loser's mentality. And I think that that's the poison and toxic behavior that has led us astray for a decade and a half.
And whose great football opinion is behind that? I mean, it was the guy who took Tua over Herbert and Chris Greer, and it's Steve Ross. And, I can't believe, there's other people in the room.
It's the right thing to say. It's the right thing to say right now.
It is not the right thing to say when you're hiring a coach, as you just said.
All right. Maybe not now. Maybe after we hire a coach, it's the right thing to say. Then you go get him competition. But yeah, it's just, and I think part of it is because they have to, I think Tua was part of the reason why Brian Flores was fired, because they weren't getting along and Tua wanted out. From what I hear.
Okay. Where's he going to go?
Same place Minka Fitzpatrick went. And they like, hey, there are people who believe in Tua. Not a long list.
You look, there's ground between he's not there and he'll never be elite, but he could be a functional, good, 10 to 15 quarterback in the league.
Sean Payton can turn into a top 10 quarterback, but you have to be Sean Payton. And you have to
play in a dome. You have to play in a dome.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it helps.
I think, as you said, I thought that was a great comment by you. It's unhealthy to interview coaches saying, this is the guy, when you don't have an Aaron Rodgers or when it's obvious let them tell you what they think. You're in the information gathering process here of a lot of.
Most Mike McDaniel can tell you, hey, I can win with Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm a Jimmy Garoppolo guy. Yes, I saw the game. Give him an opportunity hey, if he puts the green, Jimmy Garoppolo sent Aaron Rodgers home before, right? You do realize that, right?
I mean, his team did. I agree. Okay.
It's happened already. It can happen again.
Yeah.
There's a certain level of quarterback that you can win with. If a Mike McCarthy, Mike McDaniel, or a Kellen Moore comes into this situation and say, I could win with insert name quarterback, but I can't win with Tua, is he immediately off the list?
It seems that way, doesn't it?
It does.
If we're to take what is being said internally, what they're putting out.
And they'll claim we never said that. We never said that.
They can't walk that back when it's everybody's saying it. They've let it out to everybody. So, okay, Luke Fader keeps his streak alive. Omar, this is like Cal Ripken. Yes. Okay, based on his history with Tua at Alabama, is this Brian Daboll's job to lose?
I would say no, because I thought Brian Daboll was a lock to become a head coach last season based on the job that he had done, based on Josh Allen's turnaround. Then I started digging and I learned that Brian Daboll's personality rubs some people the wrong way. And why does Brian Daboll rub people the wrong way? Because Brian Daboll and we have a similar personality. We're both aggressive. And we both tell you what we think, and we're no-nonsense people. And if you don't like it, tough titty. And Brian Daboll could possibly walk into that interview, and what's supposed Brian Daboll isn't a Tua guy.
We've been down this road before. Remember when Joe Philbin was hired, and we know why he was hired, because Matt Flynn was a free agent quarterback, and he's going to bring him in here. Joe Philbin, in one of his few really good decisions. He didn't like Matt Flynn as a quarterback. He saw him practice so there's a very possible idea that Brian Daboll, he's worked with the Patriots, and we know who was there. He's helped develop Josh Allen. He might say no. So we have no idea. He might say Tua's he's great.
He likes a gunslinging quarterback. He loved Matt Moore. He likes a gunslinger. He likes an aggressive quarterback. I'm not sure Tua is an aggressive quarterback. And think about it. It's not like he started the entire season with Alabama. They got to the national championship game with Jalen Hurts as their starting quarterback. And
he was a great college quarterback. I mean, he was a great college quarterback.
Who was a great college quarterback?
Tua was a great college quarterback.
He was. But the season that Brian Daboll worked with him, he was a backup.
Yeah, okay, right.
So, yeah, he won them the national championship game, but he was a backup. Right. And they saw a lot of promise in him, but he's had an opportunity to watch Tua for the last 2 years. And based on what Buffalo's done to Miami, do you think Brian Daboll's looking at the Dolphins and saying, yeah, that's my quarterback right there?
I tell you, let's just for the sake of conversation, say he loves Tua. That's not why I'm hiring. I mean,
it shouldn't be.
He shouldn't be hired on Tua one way or the other, in my mind. Okay, if you're bringing him as offensive coordinator, as quarterback, head coach, as we've seen, you have to lead the whole team. Okay, and our number one.
Well, not if you're Adam Gase. But anyway, that's a different side.
Okay. You got to be able to coach the whole team. You got to command the room of the whole team. Okay, and.
Not if you're Adam Gase.
That's, the two things nice that they have a relationship, if they have one. That's nice, but that's not number one on my list of things to hire Brian Daboll.
Yeah. We spent a lot of time, and you brought this up and addressed it, and I've addressed it as well. There's been a lot of catering to Tua.
Yes.
And, I'm uncomfortable with the level of catering to Tua. And it's not like the performance has been bad, but arguably he's the 17th best quarterback in the NFL.
Omar, there's been a lot of catering, and there's also been completely on the other side of that, a lot of unhealthy. So it's very split person. You're talking a bizarrely run franchise the last couple of years with Tua. I mean, there's no other way to put it. Okay.
PSN 81 asks a good one. What's up with Doug Peterson and Harbaugh? Been curiously quiet. Are they definitely out of the mix or flying under the radar? I would say either this is the most covert head coaching search, stealth mode that the Dolphins have ever run, or both of those individuals are not in the mix.
Yeah, I'm with you, Omar. And what's the purpose of stealth mode? They're announcing, the league is asking, and they're just announcing because it gets out anyway. So why not just be forward with? So if you're interviewing Doug Peterson, what's the purpose of stealth mode there? Now, Jim Harbaugh is different. He's a college coach. There's a lot of things. So as we said before, recruiting and relationships in college, that's different. But if
let me ask you a question, Dave. And this is not since we're exploring the college coach area and we're exploring the possibilities, why not Dabo Swinney?
That's a great question. The only thing I can think of is, can the name Dabo go out of the Deep South? Can that name travel, Omar?
I mean, hell, why not Dabo Swinney if you're Jacksonville Jaguars?
There was rumors a couple years ago of him, and they went nowhere.
I remember Larry Coker back in the Larry Coker heyday, in the great years of Larry Coker that nobody wants to put respect on. He was interviewed for the Oakland Raiders job.
Really?
Yeah, and for a head coaching job, kept it quiet because it was going to impact recruiting.
Al Davis and Joe Philbin.
I'm just saying.
I just can't say.
Hey, Larry had a lot of speed. I like speed, but why wouldn't you? I've always the Shaws, Stanford. Why do we have? Yes, Urban Meyer was a massive failure. Massive.
David Shaw, yeah.
Yeah, David Shaw. But Urban Meyer was a massive failure. The Kirby Smarts. Why not go that realm and route if you're just looking for leader of men who can, elevate a team and make them better?
Yeah, again, that comes to individuals. There's been a handful of guys who've gone from college.
Harbaugh.
Yeah, Harbaugh. He was an NFL quarterback, though, so he had some standing in the NFL, right? I mean, he was
okay.
Jimmy Johnson, Dick Vermeil, did Pete Carroll. But Pete Carroll he was mainly an NFL coach who went to college and then came back to the NFL. So,
and I think that's a good route.
Yeah. But I'm saying Dabo Swinney is just college. He'd be coming to the pros. It depends on him. Does he? He's not. I haven't heard him put his name. A couple years ago, his name was whispered, and then it went away real quick. And that's a good.
Yeah, it goes away real quick when you learn that college coaches are getting paid more than NFL coaches.
Well, that's the thing. If you're going to win 8 games just by showing up on Saturdays, and the
stress is less. Yeah.
$10 million a year now. Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot, Omar, asking you to give me your best sales pitch to convince your best candidate to pick the Dolphins over the Giants, the Bears, the Vikings, the Broncos, the Raiders, the Texans, and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Go.
Listen, one, I'll let you know, even though I'm wearing a turtleneck today, it's about 74 degrees in January. I've probably pulled out a sweater maybe 5 times in 2021. We've got no state taxes. That's a bonus that only 3 states can match: Seattle and Texas. Listen, I'm Ross. I've got deep pockets. I got $74 million. And if you think what the Patriots did last offseason, breaking my old record of spending sprees in an offseason, was big deal, wait till you see me this offseason. I'm going to make it rain because that's what I do. That's what I get in the game. Who you want is who I will sign. Unlimited pockets. I'll give you a guaranteed contract, 5 years, just like I did Brian Flores. He gets every penny of it. You can too, even though I might fire you early. Listen, did I mention the $74 million in cap space? Did I mention we've got a pretty good defense, top 10? They might not have finished top 10, but there were some circumstances that contributed to it. But I got the pieces that you need to win. And I got some decent coaches who are still under contract if you want to keep them and if you struggle to put together your staff. But listen, my biggest selling point, while teams like the Chicago Bears might have or the Jacksonville Jaguars might have a young, promising quarterback, and teams like the Los Angeles Raiders might have an established, and Minnesota Vikings might have an established winning quarterback, I have Tua. And Tua is a phenomenon in itself. Before the hip injury, there was no quarterback bigger than him in all of college football. And we're going to get him right, and we're going to get him healthy. And if you don't want Tua, I'll go get whatever quarterback that you want. Did I lose you, Tua?
You surprised me because Mr. Ross is out there that you're all in on Tua.
Listen, that's what I got to say to make the young man happy. But he's under contract. He's not going anywhere. And if you can get me a better quarterback, I'll move him for you. The question is, what can you do for me? And how do I sign you? I would make the argument to you, Miami might be the 3rd best job on this list.
3rd?
Yeah, 3rd.
Behind who?
Raiders. They're a playoff team.
Sure.
I think the Chicago Bears are the one organization who is doing it absolutely right. They are going to turn over every single rock, interview every possible candidate that is a mover and a shaker in this league. And they're going to find the right people. And they might not hire a GM and then have him hire the coach. They might hire 2 individuals and have them say, work together, play nice. We believe in both of you individuals. And maybe that's not the right structure to build an organization. But I like what they're doing. I really do. Do I believe in their quarterback? No, not necessarily. I would have to want to coach Justin Fields. And I personally wouldn't want to coach Justin Fields. That's not my style of quarterback. I just don't. I'm not into it. But I believe that they've got a lot more pieces than the Miami Dolphins do. So,
Well, the Dolphins' job comes down to what you think of Tua. Then, because right now, if the Denver Broncos are a quarterback away from being as good as anybody in the AFC and in the league. I mean, they're all set up to win. And if Rodgers goes down there,
new ownership group. Do you really want to deal with that?
Yeah, I do. But with that roster, if I'm a coach, I say I got 3-year window. I can win in 3 years.
Do you really in today's NFL?
What's that?
I said, do you have a 3-year window?
If I get Aaron Rodgers, if I get a quarterback, that roster will win.
You think Aaron Rodgers is going to Chicago? He says,
I'm saying Denver.
Oh, Denver. Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry, my bad. Yeah.
Okay, so I think the Vikings. The Vikings lost, I think, 8 points. I said last week by 7 points or less. Those games, they're right there in the playoffs till the last week, and they lost that many close games. If I'm a good coach, I'm thinking I can go in there and win a few of those games. And
they also have the highest paid quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, they do.
Highest paid player in the NFL.
That's a bad contract. That's definitely a bad contract.
Hey, listen, I support him because he pimped the system. Nobody has ever pimped the system like he has.
Jacksonville. Problems in.
Come on, you have to play 1/3 your game in London. Let's be real about it.
Okay, so here's what they think. Can I win? They don't think of weather. In Green Bay, they're outdoors as much as they are basically because they're in caves watching film in meeting rooms, etc. I mean, given their choice, they'd rather be here, but they're thinking of winning as a coach. Can you win with the young quarterback in Jacksonville? With the problem, the question there is the GM, Trent Baalke. You're in here. He's fired Harbaugh. He whatever happened with him, he fired another coach in San Francisco.
A lot of people believe in him. I like Trent Baalke.
Yeah, but if you're a coach, are you believing in the guy who's now working on his fourth quarterback?
He's a survivor, bro. He's been through the ringer, so you gotta believe he's really good at his job.
And so the question is, if you're a coach, what do you think of that situation? Okay.
If I'm Brian Daboll, I want that Jacksonville job because
absolutely
that is the best young quarterback, and you have a good talent evaluator there who's got some issues, but if you have a good relationship with him, and Baalke is a smoozer. Trent Baalke, he plays well with others. He's not like a certain individual. Won't mention the name. James wants to know, Dave, with 28 players hitting free agency and a new head coach coming in, is the new head coach starting a new rebuild or a patchwork roster, Dave?
Yes. On offense, it is a rebuild. Okay. On defense, you're praying. I would just keep that whole staff and say, as long as I had trust in Josh Boyer that he can run the defense.
I'd have to have a good relationship with him too.
Yeah,
I'd have to have some kind of relationship.
Yeah, of course. I'm assuming we get along, but you know what?
And I'd have to be a head coach like Adam Gase, where it's like, I don't want to do anything with defense. You figured it out.
Right. I'm assuming. I'm saying if you're hiring an offensive mind, if you're hiring a defensive mind, it's out the window because you can bring his own defense and people and all that stuff. So
let's hire a head coach.
Look, the offense. There's 2-3 players who you can say because 2 is one. The
Jalen Waddle.
Right, the right guard's another, and that's about it. Where you can say for sure. Well, Jalen Waddle, right? Jalen Waddle.
Jalen Waddle
are there.
The right tackle. I mean, the left tackle will be back, but he'll probably be playing somewhere else. And there are probably four pieces at the max that are probably going to be back. I don't even. And let's get to our next question so we can address some of these things here. Wayne, I would like to see the Fins spend money in free agency on offensive line help. I got to get an offensive line question in here, Dave. But not the most expensive guys. What are your thoughts on this, Dave?
I'm in desperation mode if I'm the Dolphins. If I'm Chris Greer, I don't know if it's my coach, it's my picking talent, or what. I'm going out and getting sure things in free agency.
Hey,
I'm
listen,
2 offensive linemen and saying, these are sure talents. I don't have to question, what's wrong.
If I'm Steve Ross, I ask 3 coaching questions to my prospective candidates. I say, who's your offensive and defensive coordinator, and who's your offensive line coach? That's what I want to know, because it was so bad under Brian Flores that it wrecked an entire season. And you could say whatever you want. You won 9 games with the worst offensive line in the NFL, and which contributed to one of the worst offenses in the NFL. And that's one of the reasons why I will be shocked and stunned if Brian Flores gets another job. And I know Houston is out there and dangling, and people are saying, oh, they just fired a coach because they want Brian Flores and whatever. Who is he hiring on offense? Because I think that's a major factor why he got fired here.
Well, that was always our question through the season is, okay, who's he going to get? Who's he going to get? Now, you start a new staff, but if you're an offensive coordinator, you know what you're asking for? Give me a 4-year contract. Give me this
4. Wow, Dave.
Give me the same contract you're getting, and then we'll talk, right?
Wow. But to mention some names, and here's a quick remedy and strategy. I think if Tua is your quarterback, I think that you need to fortify the right tackle spot. Everybody knows I'm a big fan of Trent Brown. He's like a mountain of a human being, where I don't care how big he is, you're not going through him and you're not going around him. That protects your right tackle spot. And then there are 2 other veterans that are going to be out there. They're South Florida natives. They're locals. Juwan James, he's coming back from an Achilles injury. You know him. You've seen him. You give him an opportunity to redeem his career here. And then Morgan Moses, who's a guy who calls South Florida home in the offseason. I've watched him train. He was a decent, competent veteran starter, held that Jets line together. Jets weren't a very good team. That doesn't necessarily mean that he played poorly. And I think that those are 3 affordable, relatively easy ways to improve your offensive line. And hell, for probably $12 million, you could sign 2 of them. So
I'm for that. I've given up on drafting an offensive lineman for this franchise.
Yeah, no, I don't. I got
preferred way of doing it.
Yeah.
Okay, OG, as our final question, does the way Greer structures contracts make it hard to get talent into the building, or does it help him keep us from being a team like the Saints who are in cap hell every year?
You know what? It's not how Greer structures contracts. It's how this organization structured contracts going back to the Jeff Ireland years. There's a 2-year commitment. After the 2 years, reality, 5,000. And if you look at how they operated last offseason, they didn't even make it to the 2-year commitment. They traded pieces that they didn't like. I don't have a problem with Chris Greer, how he operates, because every 2 years he's got cap space. He's got money to spend. And Steve Ross, as you know, likes spending money. Why? Who knows? But fans don't complain.
He's got it. That's why. He's got it.
Listen,
he wants to win.
Yes, and there are, not only is there $74 million in cap space, but there are easy ways to create like another $20 million in cap space by getting rid of the Devontae Parkers of the world, the Eric Flowers of the world, the Byron Joneses of the world, the Jesse Davis, the Allen Hurns. Dolphins have, the problem I see with a lot of this is there isn't a really good free agency class. Not to say that that's going to stop them, because there's going to be veterans out there who are traded and pieces that are bartered. Trent Jones got traded from his situation in Los Angeles with the Raiders to New England. So there are going to be pieces that are out there that a team with a lot of cap space can say, come to me. I've got cap space. You want to unload that contract? Holla at me. Throw me a draft pick. And I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with how financially Chris Greer has run the organization. To me, it's talent. It's talent evaluation. That's my bigger issue.
Yeah, and Brandon Shore's a guy who is in there doing a lot of the contracts, okay? But it falls under Chris Greer's bailiwick, okay? But so what you're hoping for is options if you're signing all these guys to exit lanes where you can get out, and they have provided that, okay?
Yeah.
And so there's no problem with the contracts. The players are getting good money up front, which is what they want, and then there's an exit ramp for the team. So
and then there's a cap hit that comes with it. And as I consistently tell my followers on Twitter, the salary cap isn't real. It's fake. It's monopoly money, and cap hit doesn't matter. Doesn't. Because if you're so worried about cap hit, why do the Dolphins always have a ridiculous amount of money to spend? All right. Well, thank you for watching X's and Omar. We will be back next week, Wednesday, and we'll probably not have a head coach by then as well. Let's just be real about it. This thing is kind of dragging on. Maybe they've got a candidate in mind. Maybe they're just taking their sweet time. And hey, considering we've done it so many different ways over the last 6 coaches, I'm fine with whatever they do as long as they hire a quality coach. Dave?
Before or after January 24th, Omar? Nobody's hired a coach yet, so
yeah. It's a slow drag for the.
Yeah,
you would think Jacksonville would have jumped on their candidate and seized the opportunity. I'm curious. Who do you think is the first domino to fall?
Everybody's waiting on Denver. Look, Dan Quinn supposedly has. I was surprised he showed up on the Dolphin list. All we heard was he's going to Denver. So
I thought that Daboll. Not Daboll, but I thought that Peterson was Denver.
The Denver?
And because Peterson isn't on many lists.
No, he's not.
Which I find very interesting.
He's turning down teams, I would guess.
You think, or I think this is just a theory. Nobody's told me this, and probably I should get on the phone and ask around. I think that the Eagles put out some information that probably makes him a little bit unflattering to a lot of candidates, a lot of teams. And
look, a guy who has been fired from his first job. There are unflattering things you could say about him. Whereas all these first-time rising coaches, they're the greatest. But the reality, you know what reality is. So Dan Quinn interests me. He interests me. So,
I never got to coach him, cover him when he was here, but Dan Quinn is definitely my second favorite candidate of the batch. I'm of the people that they're interviewing, because Peterson would be number one on my list because he fits all the criteria that I'm looking for, but nobody cares what I think.
Little personality quirk. Dan Marino, superstition. He had his backup pull his jersey down over his shoulder pads. So for years, Peterson's biggest role with the Dolphins was pulling Dan Marino's jersey in the back down before a game over his shoulder pads. So, we can ask him about that if he's hired here.
Yeah, and Marino even knows Peterson. You know Marino's involved in this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He has a say in this. He's in the room.
And I just don't.
He's in the room where it happens. There's 4 of them.
So how does Peterson not get an interview? This puzzles me.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Maybe he just
unless he turned them down.
Maybe, or unless he's got something else lined up. It is one of, or Philadelphia and Dolphin Chris Greer. Philadelphia's GM and Chris Greer. They've got a great relationship, so maybe they talk. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of this situation. We will be back next Wednesday at noon to discuss the latest as the Dolphins head coach search turns. Thank you for watching X's and Omar. You can find it on any place you find podcasting sites, and it will be up later on the Sun Sentinel's website around about 4 o'clock today.